come on in.
Hi.
Hey.
I was told you're the one to see to help me start my wealth building journey.
Well, great. You've come to the right place. Let's see what you're working with.
I think this is a good place to start.
This'll do.
Welcome back. We are the Real Money Pros, Jeremiah Bates, Nick Daniels. We are fiduciary financial advisors. And today we want to talk about the topic of wealth, and more importantly, how to build wealth. And more importantly, we want to focus on if you're in a position where you feel a little bit tight, meaning at the end of the month, your expenses versus your income, you're either not far ahead, maybe you're flat, or maybe you're slightly behind.
So where do you begin? You want to start building wealth. What is square one foundational? Well, first of all, you've got to know your budget. And I know a lot of people hate that word budget, Jeremiah. So maybe you want to call it a spending plan. But here's the deal. You've got to know where your money is going. And I find that so often people don't really track their expenses.
What gets measured, what gets improved. And in this day and age, the applications, the programs, a lot of times your online banking, it can give you a very good snapshot and insight of where your money is going and what money is coming in.
So you've got to track your expenses and build a budget.
Small steps generally lead to bigger outcomes. Now we're getting into some actual next steps. First step, emergency fund. You can get thrown curveballs. You want to have an emergency fund that can cover expenses. General rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months, so you can be prepared. And they happen all the time, we just don't know what or when. You know that you have an emergency fund that you can tap into to address that situation when it does come up. And this also is largely gonna help you avoid, which the topic we're gonna cover, Nick, is not taking on high consumer debt, meaning leveraging credit cards or some type of personal loan and things like that. And again, one thing to touch on with emergencies is insurance, health insurance, life insurance. And these are things that you hope you don't need to use them, but you wanna make sure that your policies are up to date, you're actively making those payments. Because again, if you get thrown a curveball, that insurance policy is there.
Okay, so now it's really time to start attacking debt. Because if you owe money to credit card companies, if you owe money on an auto loan, if you owe money to student loans that can't be forgiven or things like that, listen, whoever you owe money to, they have control over your ability to build wealth. You've got to look at it like that. If I'm on the hook for, in today's current environment, like we're seeing car payments at $800, $900 a month, that auto loan is controlling your ability to build long-term wealth. So you want to attack your debt aggressively, and there's two really common ways to do that. Either attack the highest interest rates first, because now you're saving money on interest, or you want to do what's called the debt snowball. You start with the smallest debt balance. So say you got one credit card with $1,000 balance and you got another credit card with an $8,000 balance. Bust your tail to pay off that $1,000 credit card balance first, even if it has a lower interest rate. Why? Because you need that emotional win, that psychological win to keep you motivated to continue going after your debt.
Don't lose sight of that. There is an emotional component to this that is almost just as important as the actual numbers. Now, one thing we want to get into that I think is in line with credit card spending is living below your means.
Absolutely.
Avoiding lifestyle creep, resisting the temptation to keep up with a lifestyle that is not suitable or sustainable. And to be clear, our economic output, our GDP, is over 70% made up of us just spending money. So corporations, companies spend a ridiculous amount of money in marketing through your phone, through your computer to try to entice you and try to convince you that you need that item. You need to buy this now because it's 50% off. And there's an important distinction to make between what you want and what you need.
Absolutely, Jeremiah. All right, so what do you do now? You've got the discipline. You've made that personal choice. Okay, I've cut some fat out of my monthly spending. I've got a portion set aside to really start building wealth. What do I do with it? Well, you need to save and invest wisely. Do I go Roth IRA? Do I go traditional IRA? I've got a 401k at work and they do a company match. Which one of these should I start with? They're all gonna be a good place to start, but what you don't want to do is just put money into any of those accounts and keep it in cash, because cash is not going to benefit from compound interest multiplied over time. So what are you going to invest in inside of these accounts? Because I said, don't keep it in cash because cash isn't going to grow. You need to look at really good, low-cost, indexed growth funds. If you're in an employer plan, it might be an indexed mutual fund. If you're just in a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA, you can look at an indexed growth exchange traded fund. Why? Well, they're a little bit cheaper, which means you're putting a little bit more money in your own pocket, which means multiplied over time, you could have a larger retirement account balance using exchange traded funds versus mutual funds.
Now, on this topic of wealth building, whether you're making $20,000 a year or you're making $20 million a year, if you don't have the right budgeting and right concepts in place, both of those scenarios, you're likely going to be in the same spot. And even if you're doing all these, maybe you're still behind. Maybe you still just do not have enough income to even hit your necessities like your rent, your utilities, and things like that. The answer is one thing and one thing only: increasing income. Now, how do you do it? I hate this term, like as much as you hate the term budgeting. This term, invest in yourself. Like, what does that really mean? It's like eye roll. I get it. Let's imagine you get a tax return like I did when I was back in my early days. What do you do with it? Well, if your income is just still low and you're still not at a net positive, then utilizing that resource to seek an acquisition of skills, something that would translate into a higher paying position. Now, I'm not talking about following your passion or something along those lines. I'm just looking at this strictly from the number standpoint. Meaning if your job that you're in right now is not paying you enough income, then you need to find something that's paying you enough income. But at the end of the day, if that input is not exceeding your output, increasing income needs to be paramount.
So continue to make yourself available to, updated personal finance strategies, updated investment opportunities. Stay consistent with your savings, stay consistent with paying down debt, stay consistent with monthly contributions to retirement accounts. Even smaller amounts make a huge difference over time.
Welcome back. We are your real money.